Right. So, welcome to another podcast. I'm Tan, your host, and I'm very glad that you're joining us today. So, on this show, we'll explore leadership, investment thinking, and what truly takes to build a leaders and the companies that scale with structures, not just speed. So, most of you here today knows about leadership. Most leaders spend their careers mastering one environment. Some understand startups, some understand enterprise, and some understand technology, but very few understand how all these systems connect. Today's guest is someone who operated across all these worlds and, more importantly, understands how to align them to create more value creation for the company themselves. Fayed Yousry has spent over 2 decades working at the intersection of growth, structure, and innovation and execution, helping companies to scale and prepare for long-term exits as well. Fayed, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here with us today.
Pleasure is all mine.
Yes,
It's
so
great
I'm
to be
very
here.
excited to unpack how all these different working environments shape your thinking and what leaders can learn operating from them. So let's start at the beginning, Fayed. Your career spanned across startups, enterprise corporations, defense, software development, to name but a few. So please walk us through that path. How does that journey evolved, and how those experiences shape you as a leader today?
Well, starting at the very beginning, I'm an engineer by training, an electronics engineer. And when I started my career, I was quite fascinated with technology. I just wanted to be on the cutting edge,
Hmm.
dealing with the latest hardware, software, and systems. And the defense sector provided such an opportunity. Usually, whatever they use in the military is a couple of generations more advanced than what we use as civilians. So that was that. Spent a few years doing a variety of things that varied from designing satellites for guiding systems like GPS. It was a system called Galileo. Up until the last project I worked on was a battlefield management system with a few projects in the middle, including air to air and air to surface missiles. Um, then I have had enough. So I decided to switch my career to startups. Started with a couple of my own, ENIT and ZWall. Both were in the entertainment slash value-added services industry, or value-added service delivery industry. Then I moved to Kuwait, where I started in the FMCG and grocery field, spent a few years there, and I'm currently doing fashion. However, believe it or not, uh, delivering an order from a grocery store is no different than delivering a UAV to a target. It takes basically the same process. You just need to know what you have to do,
Hmm.
plan a way to do it, find the correct team to do it, and execute.
Right.
Of course, in the defense fields, being Fortune 500 companies, I was a small gear in a very big machine. In
Hmm.
startups, you get to have more influence on the final decision, and it's more agile.
Yeah. Yes, that's definitely some of the areas that I love to understand a bit more, Fayed, because it's very interesting that you worked inside both Fortune 500 organizations and high-growth startups, which operate almost like different species. You mentioned about agility, which I think is a key differentiation between the two organizations. But when it comes to other factors like innovation, risk, and growth, what are some of the biggest differences that you observed?
Well, let's say that the larger companies or the enterprises are far more structured.
Mm.
They have a smaller margin of error. Um something that does its job 90% of the time is still considered the failure, especially in the air and space field. However, when it comes to startups, we kind of tend to move fast and break things. So it's very, very different, and the challenge that I see with a lot of founders moving from the bootstrapped or hacked startup where it's all about the hassle and everything is in Excel sheets and being done over Slack or WhatsApp, to trying to go to an IPO or get an institutional investor on board. Going through that transition from the highly agile, highly fast, move fast and break things approach, to having a more governed, structured approach to doing things. This is where a lot of the startups undergoing that transformation struggle. However, let's put it at that. When you're working for a Fortune 500 company, the innovation is about being deliberate, mitigating problems, and making sure that you get things done right. For startups, innovation is basically about survival. If we stop innovating, then my competitor will overtake me in the next round of investment. So it is speed is our currency, and if we fail, you just get back on the horse and go and do the next thing.
Exactly. I think that balance between structure and speed seems to define modern leadership. So let's talk more about your background, Fayed. Your defense background stands out because most business leaders don't operate in that very high stakes environment. So how did that experience shape the way that you approach business strategy and decision making today?
Well, again, as I said, it's a very different field. I mean, in certain projects we have a zero margin of error, and in other projects, having some errors, even having some crashes, is no big deal as long as we have this system up and running by the time they want it up and running. The defense field has always been a driving force of technology. I mean, think of it like that. In 1901, that's 125 years ago, the Wright brothers were able to fly a plane. 12 years later, we had fighter planes. And 40 years later, we had ballistic missiles. Now we have AI-driven drones flying across the Middle East. So this industry, what I've learned, I learned the importance of planning. I've learned having the sufficient amount of accuracy, because it's one of the problems that I see with a lot of founders, especially for those who come from tech backgrounds. They just want to perfect the technology, and they might lose the business opportunity, or in our case, miss the deadlines just to perfect the technology. And he's trying to fix a non-problem, something that's not really an issue. So I've learned in the defense field, for contingency planning, I always have plans A, B, C, and D. And if it all fails, then we can think of another plan. So that's another thing that you don't really find in the startup environment. People just sprint in the direction they want to go to, and if they stumble and fall, they don't have contingencies. So yeah, that's about it. The importance of technology, the importance of having the correct team and the correct approach, and planning for most contingencies. And in that field, I have dealt with very large multinational teams, I'm sorry,
Mm.
So that taught me to have like a colleague from India, another from the UK, and the project manager is from Chinese origins. It doesn't matter.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
learn to deal with that.
Right. Sounds like the level of discipline and the ability to make contingency plan becomes a stabilizing force when everything else becomes uncertain, especially in a startup world where everything is just up and running and you don't know what's next for you tomorrow. So let's circle back a bit, Fayed, because you mentioned something very interesting about leading multinational teams across different cultures and regions. On paper, diversity sounds very powerful, but in execution, it can be very complex as well. So, to you personally, what are some of the biggest challenges in creating alignment across cultural boundaries?
Well, it's not a language issue per se. However, different words have different meanings in different cultures. So
Hmm.
let's say that the meaning of urgency or telling a teammate this is urgent, it has very
Hmm.
different meaning when you're talking to a guy in Cairo than or
Hmm.
you're talking to a German, for instance.
Yes.
When you say quality of engineering, it's a very different approach if you're dealing with Japanese, the Japanese approach for engineering technology
Hmm.
compared to the German or the American approaches. So
Hmm.
it's not really the meaning, the definition of the word. It's the sensation or feeling. We're dealing with people. We're not dealing with machines.
Hmm.
So this is something that one needs to be very very careful and have everything data driven. I mean, it's the math and numbers is the only universal language.
Hmm.
So if I tell you this is urgent, well, you will interpret the meaning of urgency. If I tell you I want this by 2 p.m. today, then I want this by 2 p.m. today. It's
Hmm.
clear. And one very important thing is empathy. You don't run a Kuwaiti team like a team that you're running in California. How
Hmm.
you motivate people is different,
Yep.
uh, and basically you have to learn the culture. You have to learn how do the rest of your teammates think in order to be able to integrate, all of us integrate into something that is functional
Hmm.
and efficient.
Mm, yes, it's very interesting. I guess cohesion isn't about sameness, it's about empathy, about clarity, and about the shared standards that you build among the team. So let's talk about that. With that systems that you built, Fayed, with a very strong team behind you, how about you making the vision become real? Because a lot of founders dream about IPO as a milestone, but from what I understand, IPO readiness is built years before the actual listing. So what are some of the most common mistakes that founders make when preparing for that level of scale?
Well, the first mistake that a lot of startups make is that they don't really know if they want to run the business and own it,
Mm,
or exit the business one way or another, or go to an IPO. And it's quite a different approach from one objective to the others. And for instance, an exit is a destination for a startup founder. I sell
mm,
the company and I leave. Halas, it's done.
yeah.
However, for an IPO, that's not the destination. That's the beginning of a new chapter
Mm,
with an entirely new setup, and you start with that. Most companies, even those who scale to the IPO, had a huge governance debt that they had to mitigate before or fix before being able to list as an IPO. Most companies wait until they have a Series B investment to hire a CFO.
yeah. Wow.
And if you move fast enough, you might have your Series B investment, and a year later you have your IPO.
Mm,
Uh, the and that's a very important thing, the success matrix is different.
Mm.
I mean, in a startup, I am trying to appease a few investors and keep them happy, provide them with the gross they are looking for. When you go to an IPO and you're a publicly traded company, then the stock value becomes extremely important. PR and showmanship becomes extremely important. Having people believe in the future value is the stock of your stock is the name of the game.
Mm.
So it's quite different, and the main mistake is usually not having the vision, the matrices, and the governance before thinking of launching an IPO.
Mm. Yes. So let's get practical into that, Fayed. From your own experience in startup acceleration, I know this is like a very early stages of many startups, but what are some of the 3 to 5 non-negotiable factors that determine whether a startup scales or stalls? At this stage, I guess like funding isn't a problem at all, but can you walk us through your thinking, like some of the factors that you think will be the success factors for the startups itself?
Well, that's kind of my day-to-day job.
Mm.
At Jadeite Ventures, we have a unit of highly skilled individuals who help startups that we fund grow.
Mm.
So we don't just throw money at the problem. We actually are pretty hands-on with early stage startups, and it's kind of fun
Yeah.
working with a diverse spectrum of startups in different fields.
Mm.
Yet there are a few things. Funding is one of them. Having enough
Yes.
money to run the
Mm.
business. Trying. Usually, people when they think of a startup, they start bootstrapping things,
Right.
trying to get some money from here and there, friends, family, and stuff. And that's well and good up until you have a minimal viable product. Once you have a minimal viable product, it's time to stop bootstrapping and go for a an institutional investor who not
Mm.
only will they help you scale your business, they will provide you with the connections you need in the industry.
Mm.
However, that's not the only thing. So as you said, that funding is usually the easiest thing to get.
Mm.
Now it's all about the numbers. 2 to 4 is resilience. You
Mm.
need to have operational resilience. First, you need to have a resilient team.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of startups who even music bands
Mm.
who simply when they hit a couple of bumps along the side, they disintegrate and the team starts fighting with each other and the startup is dead.
Yeah.
So a resilient team or team resilience is of the utmost important, and it's one of the things that I look for when I'm investing in a company. If they don't have a resilient team, if the team is not extremely cohesive and they function as a single unit, they are not getting a dime from me.
Mm.
Uh, the um, the second thing is having operational resilience.
Mm.
Can our back end handle 10x the volume?
Mm.
If that's the case, then we're fine. If that's not the case, we need to work on it. You cannot have the sprint stop approach, because you don't have and the operational capacity to grow, and you need to build it as you grow, and you don't need to build capacity that is far larger than what you need, because that costs money. So it's kind of a balance.
Mm.
So unit economics, that's our king. I don't care about the gross merchandise value. I don't care how much you
Mhm.
sold for.
Yeah.
But I care for every unit we sell, how much money are we making? And if if this equation is correct, yet our overheads or our marketing expenditure is a bit high because we're starting, then it's no big deal. Yet if your unit economics is not adding up, so you're losing money on every operation or every transaction or every order, then you're not going anywhere unless you're relying on a technological breakthrough that is about to happen.
Mm.
Like delivery companies, we have all been operating with horrible unit economics, even if you're profitable. However, everybody is waiting for robotic and drone deliveries. Once this is done, it will cut our unit cost to near zero.
Mm.
Finally, the product market fit.
Yeah.
You can have all the bells and whistles, but if people buy your product and or see your product and it doesn't fit them or they don't like them, then it's over. You will not have retention.
Mm.
So product market fit, unit economics, operational and founder resilience, these are the four most important things, and then comes the fund.
Mm, yes, that's very interesting because everything you're describing, Fayed, keeps coming back to the founder. There's a classic debate in investing. Do you bet on the horse or the jockey, the market idea, or the founder leading it? And in this case, I think the founders are your solution. So I would love to understand more about that thinking. From what you've seen, how often does the founder determine the outcomes?
Maybe 100% of the cases.
Mm.
It's a, I mean, I have met founders who didn't have the correct product market fit
Yeah.
and the startup crashed. Hell, I have a few startups that crashed myself.
Mm.
However, the if the founder has the correct mindset and the correct way or the entrepreneurial way to get things running. If it's not the first startup, it might be the second startup, but he will succeed.
Yeah.
So it is the founder's resilience, and the founder is the person who needs to be able to keep things together, to keep the team together. He's the glue that holds the startup together, especially when it comes to difficult times.
Mm.
If the founder gives up, then the company is done.
Mm. Yes, I totally agree. The founders can always pivot his business, but the characters, the resilience, are all the things that cannot change after just one night. So let's talk more about the turnarounds. What's savable? You mentioned that you're drawn to complex challenges, but when evaluating a struggling company or a companies that on the verge of pivot, soft or hard, how do you decide whether it's worth saving or not?
Unit economics is the first thing. Then comes if the unit economics is good, or you're positive per transaction, then the business can be saved.
Mm.
If not, we look at the operational efficiency and see if the business is hemorrhaging money somewhere, and can that be fixed. Uh, and finally, if they have a good user base or good IP that will help us in the future. These are the
Mhm.
three things that make us decide to salvage a business.
Mm.
If not, then the business will probably end up like a lot of business, where you buy the business, sell out the assets, and just liquidate it.
Mm.
And again, the founders passion and their willingness to undergo the changes, their willingness to change. There is no much resistance to change, is uh, is
Mhm.
is a factor. And that's actually a very good business. Buying a struggling business and restructuring this has made a lot of investors a lot of money.
Mm. Yes, I totally agree. Coachability is definitely one of the, like the characteristics that many investors, especially venture capitalists, are looking for when they're about to bet on the company and the founders themselves. So let's bring this conversation to a close, Fayed. I mean, for someone who wants to follow a similar path like you, switching from corporate to startup and turnaround leadership, what skill set or whether technical or soft skills should they deliberate build from now on?
Technical skills, it depends on the kind of startups you want to work on. I
Mm,
am focused on technology startups and digital transformation. So having a strong technical background uh, helps me a lot, especially when it comes to the uh, BS detection. So if a
mm,
developer tells me this will take 3 months, I take a look at the code and I tell him that's a 3 day job. It's an
wow.
API integration. Why do you want to do that? Why do you need 3 months? And why will it cost that much? Um, it helps me understand the cost of the business decision. I
Mm,
mean, when I come from a technical background, but I deal with
yeah.
founders and CEOs who don't,
Mm,
and I find them asking their tech team for something that will basically lead them to demolishing half of the software architecture and starting over. This is where I tell them, no, this is not a small ask. So this kind of help. The common things that you need, whether it's an whether it's a technology startup or not,
mm,
deep understanding of microeconomics, not to the
mm,
extent of being an economist, but you will need to
yes.
be able to analyze your market and to analyze your company. Some understanding of macroeconomics,
Mm,
economics 101, 102 would do fine.
yeah.
And a skill to prioritize is financial modeling.
Mm,
Uh, you don't need to be a CPA, but you need to be able to understand cash flows. You need to understand balance sheet, and you need uh, to be able to control that. A lot of startups don't go out of business because they were at a loss on a P&L level. They simply
mm,
ran out of cash.
yeah.
So cash flow and understanding financial modeling is extremely important. And when you do a couple of startups, you learn that you do everything on paper before you start.
Mm,
So you have a financial model, and you need to be involved with what we call the unsexy operations.
mm,
So you need to go to the warehouse. You need to handle the customer, to handle customer support tickets yourself as a founder once or twice a month. You need to be at your warehouse with your operation team a couple of times a month. You need to be with the production team a few times a
mm,
month. It's not all the glorious meaty product meetings where
yes.
we think about how we're going to change the future. We need to
Mm,
be part of the team and see how the Oompa Loompas downstairs are getting things up and running, and what the problems they are facing and how we can help them. At least this will help you. One of the problems, especially when the company gets bigger, I mean, if you're a 5-6 person startup, then naturally the founder is doing that, or
mm,
the CEO is doing that. When it grows to a few hundred people, some lose that connection with the operations on the ground.
yeah.
And the moment that happens, things starts to break, because when the only source of information you have as the decision maker is a
Mm,
few reports and
right.
and some and some matrices, you might easily lose sight of something that's important.
Yes.
especially if your only metrics is P&L. I
Mm.
mean, I don't believe, though I work for an investment company, I don't believe that profit should be our only KPI.
Mm.
When we have profit as our only API, we have disasters like the Fayed, like Fort Pinto, or the 737 crashing a few years ago. They focused on the P&L a little bit too much. They wanted to get the product on in the market as fast as possible,
Mm.
and they lost sight of quality. Sometimes we lose sight of our environmental impact, or our social impact.
Mm.
And with the emergence of technology, and how artificial intelligence, and how technology is progressing really fast. I mean, I have been in the field for 20 years. I never had to study that much like I do now.
Mm.
Um, we can easily lose focus on our environmental and social impact, and we end up asking or having to have ESG, or environmental and social governance. Governance, then after governance comes, and in the AI field, people, some of the top CEOs are asking for government regulations,
Mm.
which is quite weird, because especially usually people in technology, we're telling we don't want regulation, leave us innovate.
Mm.
But these people understand that this kind of technology is so disruptive, it can have a very positive or a very negative impact on communities. So uh, I prefer self governance, but if
Mm.
not, then we will have to have somebody else
Yes.
do it for us.
Right.
So it's kind of that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Fayed. And I think that also closes the